So I want to talk a little bit about Sony and the PlayStation 5 today, specifically about some of the marketing missteps that I think they've made, the lead up to where we are now, the comparison to Microsoft and what they've done, and an update even on backwards compatibility that we now received. So we all watched that keynote for the most part. I think a lot of people started to get kind of bored, tuned out a bit midway through, and I get it. It was definitely not for the majority of gamers, right? It was certainly something that they had set up for GDC. They even mentioned it at the beginning of it, and it went on with things that you and I probably won't pull much from because we're not developers for the PlayStation 5, but I think people who are a bit more technically inclined got a lot out of it, and of course developers got a ton from it, and it does look like the PlayStation 5 is going to be significantly better than the PlayStation 4 by a lot, right? That's what they chose to compare it to, not the Series X, and I get it. For Sony, they're in their lane, they're looking forward, and they're like, how can we make this system better than the PlayStation 4? And they have, at least from what they've described. I still need to see a bit more. But the backwards compatibility thing stuck with me, and I know it stuck with some of you, because we were hoping for at least fully backwards compatible with the PlayStation 4 games, right? Or at least a significant amount. However, Mark Cerny mentioned 100 games that they had been testing, and all of us kind of looked at each other and said, well, hold on, we were talking about like PS1 and PS2 compatibility because we thought PlayStation 4 was a given, especially with what we've seen from Microsoft and how they're treating their backwards compatibility. Fortunately, Sony did update us on what he was trying to say, I guess, and it sounds a bit more promising. They posted it on their blog, or the PlayStation blog, and this is what it says. A quick update on backwards compatibility. With all of the amazing games in PS4's catalog, we've devoted significant efforts to enable our fans to play their favorite games on PS5. We believe that the overwhelming majority of the 4,000 plus PS4 titles will be playable on PS5. We're expecting backward compatible titles will run at a boosted frequency on PS5 so that they can benefit from higher or more stable frame rates and potentially higher resolutions. We're currently evaluating games on a title-by-title basis to spot any issues that need adjustment from the original software developers. In his presentation, Mark Cerny provided a snapshot into the top 100 most played PS4 titles, demonstrating how well our backward compatibility efforts are going. We have already tested hundreds of titles and are preparing to test thousands more as we move toward launch. We will provide updates on backward compatibility along with much more PS5 news in the months ahead. Stay tuned. So this is obviously good news, as a lot of us were kind of left hanging after the Road to PS5 presentation from Mark Cerny. Now we know, okay, it's not just like 100 games, right? Those are just the ones they've kind of been playing around with and testing, the 100 most played games, which it's going to be a lot of Call of Duties and NBA and Madden and stuff, right? I mean, if you look at the charts, that's what a lot of people play. But if you consider the idea of some of their first-party titles on the PlayStation 4 that could benefit heavily from the PS5, games that were built for the PS4, but still were, I would say, a bit too heavy, almost a bit too large, much bigger than even what the PS4 could handle. Mark Cerny even mentioned that a bit during his presentation, where he showed kind of the graph with like the axe on the end and is like, yeah, this game beat up the PS4 Pro even so much that you could hear the fan going nuts. And yeah, I think most of us have experienced that. So to hear that the PS5 and its boosted frequency and just overall more powerful system, GPU, CPU especially, I'm excited to see some of those games at higher resolutions and higher frame rates, just like straight across the board. God of War, for example, has a mode that pretty much uncaps the frame rate, but it's like all over the place, right? Whereas you could go with like the more cinematic mode that caps it at 30, that's much more stable, but it feels less fluid because of that. To have the PS5 come in, take God of War, put it on that system, and then all of a sudden lock it at 4K 60, that is something I would actually go back and play again, because just because of that, there are a lot of times in the game where you're expected to, of course, have quick reflexes, and a stable 60 would help with that like tremendously. Then, of course, games like Horizon Zero Dawn, which we're going to see on PC pretty soon, and that get maxed out specifically with frame rate, that'll be pretty neat to see as well. And if they go back and do any enhancements, maybe we could see something like Bloodborne have its ultimate edition, essentially, through the PS5. Things like that get me excited for backwards compatibility because we've already seen this on the Xbox One X. Even original Xbox games that have been pulled up to now has benefited from higher resolutions and frame rates. Knights of the Old Republic looks and feels like a brand new game on the Xbox One X, and it's amazing to see. Even Red Dead Redemption, the original, is in 4K, and it looks really, really good because of it. But the communication that I've been seeing from Sony, especially compared to Microsoft, is concerning. There are times where I look at what Sony's doing right now, and I almost wonder if there is just some disorganization behind the scenes, if they're unsure about how to present things with the PS5 right now. It does feel scattered. It's very strange, isn't it? Now, there have been rumors about some of the development with the PlayStation 5 for a while now, if you look it up online, where they were even trying to figure out what they were going to do. Were they even going to launch it last year? Those are all things that have popped up in the past. Was the PS5 supposed to come out in 2019? Do you remember those, where apparently there were talks behind the scenes of that happening and maybe even a restructuring of the console? It's been all over the place right now, but Microsoft has been pretty straightforward with their presentation, and it does kind of make Sony look like they're just behind the times. They're unsure what to do. They don't know how to present this. I don't know if that's 100% right now, but in the same week that we had the Series X literally taken apart in front of us, put back together with the engineers who designed the system sitting across from the table while Austin Evans and Digital Foundry sat there and put it together and had live demonstrations of it working, it does make you scratch your head as to why Sony then did a live stream premiere of a keynote from GDC where Mark Cerny told us about audio charts. Now, I do think the PlayStation 5 is going to come out, and I think it's going to do well. It'll sell out day one. I think the Series X will also sell out day one. How many will they be able to produce in our current situation in the world? It's hard to say. I would like to think they'd be able to get 1 million ready to go for launch like usual, but that might not be the case. A lot of times in the first 24 to 48 hours, there will be a statement put out during like the Xbox One and the PS4, for example, where they're like, oh, we sold 1 million consoles already. But if we look at the PS5 and its current trajectory, we can look back on the last new generation for a system that launched, which was Nintendo, the Switch. Now, the Switch was a pretty big departure from the Wii U, right? It wasn't like the Wii U was a home console essentially, right? It was kind of like this portable thing, but it was like this half step to what the Switch is, and you weren't exactly going to walk to the other side of the house with the Wii U tablet. It had a very short range, we'll say. All right. And even for some of the games, the resolution on the screen was pretty low, and it was hard to read text at times. It was a whole thing. So when they presented the idea of console and handheld meet in the middle and you get the Switch hybrid, it was radically different from what we were used to, right? It really was. But they presented that thing less than 5 months before launch. We had heard about the NX, much like we heard about the PS5 now. In fact, going into this time right now, if you compare the Switch versus the PS5, we know more about the PS5 than we knew about the Switch or even NX at the time. We were still calling it the NX up until less than 5 months out. Remember, October 20th, they dropped that trailer of the guy inside doing some Breath of the Wild and getting up and walking outside. Yeah, that was less than 5 months. October 20th is when they showed us that, and then the beginning of March is when they actually released the Switch, which leads me to believe that June? Maybe end of May, Sony will do something with the PS5, and then we'll probably even get another event after that. But there is one key difference, and it keeps bugging me with Sony. The key difference here is we knew about a game that was going to be on the Switch that was going to be big, right? We knew that Breath of the Wild was in the works, and we were pretty sure that was going to end up on the Switch as well, and they really showed it definitely in that trailer, and then we got the launch date that it was all going to come out at the same time during their January event, right? Like right at the end, they were like, one more game, boom, Breath of the Wild, it's coming first week of March. Everyone explodes in excitement. I feel like Sony needs to have a game like that at launch because Microsoft will have Halo Infinite, and for all of the For really how far Halo's fallen, I'm actually getting pretty excited for Infinite, a new engine, a massive departure from what they've been using forever now, brand new console. It's been confirmed that while it will be on the Xbox One, Infinite will also take advantage of the Series X quite heavily to help show off a lot of the features, which include the SSD, ray tracing, I assume the higher frame rates. It's going to be a showcase game for the Series X. So I do wonder if Sony is going to wait until they show the PS5 form factor to then announce a launch game for it. Now, there is a good chance that it could be Horizon Zero Dawn 2. There is a good chance that it could be Bluepoint's game, although Bluepoint most likely is remaking a game. So will there be as much hype for that? Kind of hard to say. I think a sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn 2 would be a big-time release. I think that'd be really cool to see. Or maybe they just announce something that we haven't even really thought about. They could also show us several games, like before they show us the PS5 form factors. Keep that in mind. We could see Spider-Man 2 before. They could just drop it on us. Spider-Man 2 is coming in 2021 or something, right? The PS5 will be out this holiday. Look forward to Spider-Man 2. Or they could save it for the event. I just feel like eventually Sony will want to come out of the gate here strong, and the games is where they generally have the advantage over Microsoft. They have some very talented studios. So consider going from, I know we're going to go back to the teraflop number again, but consider going from much older architecture from AMD, a system like the original PS4 base at 1.84 teraflops that was running God of War, and it still looked great, and now they're jumping all the way to a system, variable frequency, I get it, but a roof of 10.28 teraflops on what's going to be a cutting-edge GPU from AMD. Yeah, I can't wait to see what these Sony studios can do, but you feel like they got to show it to us. And right now, Microsoft is in the lead with marketing their system correctly and delivering a good message to us as to how it's all going to work, even showing it to us. So I'm hoping that Sony can figure this thing out with the marketing. And I hope they don't have to keep doing this where they say one thing and then they have to come out and explain it again to us because the message has been kind of mixed. It's interesting, but show us the games. I think most of us will be on board. Thanks, guys, for watching. Make sure you like the video on the way out if you enjoyed it. Dislike it if not. And come on by the Spawncast tonight as we'll be talking about the PS5 and the Series X and Doom and Animal Crossing. Should be a lot of fun. That's 9 p.m. Eastern tonight. And I'll see you guys then.